If you take your food personally, like me, then you need to get on the Thrive food discovery and ordering app. Join the community of foodies on the Thrive feed, where you can curate restaurant lists, ask for recos, and chat about all things food. So download it today and start thriving. Welcome to today's episode of Speak Greasy. My guest is Yavi Mariwala, who is the third generation co-founder of Nandan Coffee, a single origin coffee grower and roaster based out of southern India. Welcome to the show, Yavi.
Hi, Gauri. Thanks for having me.
I love having podcast versions of the show. So I remember meeting you for the first time when we were both standing at the farmer's market in Mahalakshmi, and you were manning your coffee stall, which I think everyone was flocking to because it was way too early in the morning, and I was manning our bakery counter. And I can't believe we were doing that, I think 6 years ago maybe it was, that we both started out with these small stalls at the farmer's market, and look where we are today. So I have to ask you, you're a third generation owner of the business. Was it expected that you take over? I know you've done various internships in corporate finance and all things non-coffee. So how did you get into the business? Was it just natural for you to step in?
So it was never expected that I would get into this. Nandan was never really run as a business, right? So it's been in our family for 3 generations because my grandparents started it in the 90s, but they started it as a passion project. So it never ran as a traditional business. We did limited exports and it was friends and family, and Nandan was just an amazing product just growing there. Although we have had our certifications and organic certifications for 20 years. I took a gap year after my various internships, none of which I enjoyed too much. And I was in college and I was like, okay, I'm graduating now. What am I going to do? So 1 year before graduation, I decided to take a gap year and I spent some time in Cody and everything just clicked. I was like, how have I never thought of getting into this business before? Because I've grown up going to the estate. It's my favorite place in the whole world. I love coffee. It's not the hardest thing to enjoy. And I think I never thought of entrepreneurship as something that was, you don't think, oh, I'm going to grow up and start a business. You go, okay, what are the different career opportunities I have? And I was just sitting on a gold mine or a coffee plantation. That was the first pop-up I did, which was during my gap year. And I had to be sent back to school kicking and screaming because I was like, I don't want to go back. I just want to continue working. So that's how it started.
So between your grandparents and you, was it your father who was looking after the business?
So between us, Dad was handling it. But again, everything was at status quo in terms of we had this great product. We had the estate that was certified organic and we were just exporting or consuming what we were growing. The brand name also existed, and 3 of the blends, one of which you serve, was in existence back then. And then I just had to come in, rebrand a little, create a website, and take it out to the Indian market.
That doesn't sound like something very little. So, I've seen in my sort of last, 13 odd years of being in this business, I would say in the last sort of 5 or 6 times, around about the time that you would have, kicked off this your involvement in the business, I've seen coffee kind of explode. I remember when it was, relegated to like cafe coffee day and barista, and that was sort of the extent of Indian coffee. And now it's a whole different scenario, But I wanted to understand, this sort of evolution that's happened because coffee's always been growing in India. It's nothing, it's not something that just started. Where did this sort of Indian coffee explosion happen where now people are like really into their coffee and there's so many brands launching all the time? What triggered this, do you think?
So I think it's a combination of so many different things, right? One is you see it in the F&B industry as well, right? Like when you first started 8 years ago, there were hardly a handful of restaurants. Now they're popping up every day, everywhere. So I think one thing is obviously we started traveling a lot more. Access to information came in. So you understand the product, and coffee is something where you have to know it to love it. The more you understand about it, the more you start appreciating it, similar to wines. And it became a lot easier for brands to also set up in India. Obviously, we've always had coffee growing in India, But the barrier to entry was so much higher, right? For something as simple as getting good packaging. If you wanted to get packaging printed, you had to print lakhs and lakhs. Now, if I want to get them printed, I can print 1,000. So the barrier to entry is lower, and everything, it all timed itself together really well, right? So you have this market that's growing, and you're seeing more of a demand for it. Obviously, it's growing right in our backyard, so it's a lot easier for coffee roasters to reach out to farmers to say, hey, listen, I want to buy your coffee and I want to roast it. And farmers now are willing to sell in smaller batches. They're not looking at just selling containers full of coffee. And the more brands that there are, we all kind of work together to increase our market share, right? So every coffee company that comes up is educating customers on what fresh coffee is as opposed to instant coffee, how to use it, how to brew it, all of that.
Very interesting. I mean, you're right that it actually, as more people or more brands come into the market, people become more aware of the nuance of all these different kinds of coffee and maybe, upgrade what they've been having before. But coming back to, you bringing the business to what it is today, how did you learn the rope?
So I took a lot of courses online. And I spent all of my free time just on YouTube, watching videos, spending time sitting at cafes itself, watching the operations, watching the flow, seeing how things go. Because coffee growing and roasting was something that we were great at. But understanding what customers are really looking for is something that had to be learned and studied. Pop-ups were the best way to learn what customers wanted, how to manage our workflow and our operations, how to interact with customers, how to train our own team. Is something that we learned through pop-ups. But in addition to just taking the courses, I learned by doing and by spending every free moment on Instagram studying different coffee influencers.
You mentioned that you used to go to restaurants and basically try and educate and then, obviously sell your product to them. How was that response? Because I do think that even as, restaurateurs or general managers that you may have been interacting with, the knowledge may have been limited, 5-6 years ago compared to today. How did you go about that and convincing them that, they need to try your product?
I started out with a lot of cold calling people. For the first 6 months, I was just trying to get purchase manager numbers and owner numbers and calling them and being like, hey, listen, I have this product. I would love to come in and do a tasting. And it was just 6 months of, no, we're busy. Call us tomorrow. Come next week. Or I would enter meetings and there are 4 different meetings happening at the same time. And so that was a kind of barrier to break through because I didn't have any background in this industry. I didn't know anyone. I didn't know how to get my foot in the door. So pop-ups were a great way for us to just be out there and for people to experience. So Table was our first big name customer. And that was also you calling me saying, hey, I need this done. I remember you called me on a Friday and you were like, it's slightly short notice. And I didn't even think before. I said, I can absolutely do it, having no idea how I was going to do it. But this was when my sister Parthavi was also running it with me. And I called her and I said, you won't believe who's called me. Parthu, we need to figure this out. We need to do it. And so while I was like, okay, Gauri, I've got all of these different sizes and samples and I'll send it to you tomorrow. And I told my sister, I was like, Parthu, I've told her we can deliver it on Monday afternoon, but we have to get it out tomorrow morning. So we were sitting in our kitchen and labeling the bottles and doing all of that. But a lot of it is, obviously, once you get your foot in the door, that really helps. So once you have one customer, it gets you another and it gets you another. But we really have to educate our customers, but also understand what their requirements are, right? Every customer, and again, I come back to Table because it's the best example to work with, where you're not a cafe, you're not a coffee shop, you're not a Mag Street cafe, right? Coffee is not your primary revenue generator. It's not something that brings in a large part of revenue, but it's something your customers either start or end their meal with. If they're at a brunch, they're starting with a coffee. If they're at a dinner, they're ending with an espresso. And that's your weak link, so to say. So we have to come in and fill up that weak link and really speak to you and understand what your requirements are. And again, that's what I try to understand what my customers are really looking for. I can come in and I can have the best product ever, but if you're just not looking to buy a product, you're just not interested in buying the product. So where are the weak links and what are you looking for and how do we address those? And really, really honing in our sales pitch also is something I learned a lot, is how can I get in there, do a tasting and get out of there the fastest way possible. So I realized, okay, it's best for me to have my own grinder that I come with, not my own machine, but my own grinder. Because several times you go to a space and it hasn't been serviced or it hasn't been cleaned, and then you're sitting there for the trial. Restaurateurs, again, being the busiest people on this planet, and you need to be able to get it before they lose interest and attention. So a lot of it was...
Wow, it sounds like a lot of hustle, and you've obviously figured it out, which is, kudos to you. But I want to go back to something really interesting that you said, and I've never actually thought of it that way, that you either start or end your meal with coffee in a restaurant, like ours, and it can either set the tone or it can, you can have had a great experience and then it ends on this slightly mediocre note if the coffee is not right? And you want that entire experience to be, at par with everything that you're doing. And I know, working with you and as we've also grown, what we've been doing, that equipment is a really integral part of how coffee is, how the coffee is served, made, etc., as well as obviously educating the team. And I've also learned that, coffee equipment is bloody expensive. So is that something that is required in order to enjoy a good coffee?
Yes and no. So it definitely, good equipment helps, right? That's the foundation. And I've picked this up over the years, but it's like, if to explain it to a chef or a restaurateur, it's like buying the most expensive fish or meat out there and then cutting it with a dull knife, right? You need a good knife to create that good end product. And that's how I try to explain to people the importance of having really good equipment. So it is really important to have great equipment, but good equipment will only get you so far. So it needs to be the beans, the equipment, and your barista, and all need to work together to produce that final end cup of coffee. Obviously, there's a lot of small steps in the way, but these are your overarching things that you need to touch upon. You've got two different lenses through which you're looking at coffee. At home, you can have a great cup of coffee using a La Marzocco or a really expensive espresso machine, but you can also make a great cup of coffee with coarse ground coffee and a chutney and just stirring it through. And that's how I did it in college, because I would always break my French presses, and finally I said, I'm not buying anymore. And so I would just strain it through. And there are ways to make good coffee, but if you're looking at it from a commercial perspective, the investment really isn't that big when you look at it per cup or per month. You really recover those costs within the first month if you've got even a semi-decent successful program, because your margins are so high on your cup. So I think, and you see the benefit of investing in this equipment. It supports you and it supports your team in producing good quality coffee at the end of the day. So there is a huge return on investment, and you have equipments that go all the way from grinders, for example, that go from 20,000 to 280,000. Right, that's the range that you're working in. But even within that, if you know what you're looking for, not every space needs that 280,000 grinder, but some spaces do need it, and then they shouldn't cut corners.
Fair enough. I mean, I think that we've also realized that over the years and made that investment. I have to be completely honest, and I'm in the business. If you blindfolded me and made me taste 4 different coffees, I wouldn't know what I was drinking. And yes, I can tell what I like and don't like. But in terms of what you may consider good coffee or not, or, the different roasts and the different sort of regions that maybe impact the flavor, I don't think the average consumer is there yet. Is that a fair comment to make?
I think it's fair, but I don't think they need to be there, right? When you're doing it as a professional from the industry, you're looking at different parameters to gauge quality and to gauge taste. But at the end of the day, a good cup of coffee should just be a good cup of coffee. And you don't need to know what processing method it's been through and how it's been. But you need to know that, okay, I've had this cup of coffee. It tastes great. I've enjoyed it. And it's not burning up my stomach afterwards, right? That's the most important thing. And that's something that I act as a translator between baristas and estate sometimes. So our quality check team, we have Irene there, and she does a great job. But she'll call me and she'll say, I got these notes and I'm not sure, and this acidity, and it's all important. But at the end of the day, what's really important to customers is that they're getting a good cup of coffee that they're enjoying.
Absolutely. And which is why my follow-up question is that then, doesn't that make it harder for you as a brand when there is now so much out there to distinguish your brand from the rest?
It is, but I think our brand is our brand, and Nandan stands for so many things. Of course, the coffee is what we do and it's who we are. But so many people love that we grow our own coffee, that it's organic, that it's grown in the heart of this wildlife sanctuary. So it's where the coffee comes from. But also on the flip side, something more concrete and measurable is the service we provide our customers. We're there when you call us. We're there to support you with everything that goes beyond the coffee and to help you get the best out of our product. So I'd say 80% of the industry is still learning about coffee. It's always the lowest thing on their list of priorities. When we get called in for proposals, the space is opening and someone's like, oh, I just thought of coffee, or I didn't think of this earlier, I need coffee. And we come in and we realize the grinder is on one end of the bar and the machine is on the other end, and there's no space for anything in between, but we have to help work within that. But I think, again, coming down to, you just have to like what you're serving and you have to be able to serve it well. And that's how we distinguish ourselves. And then we help you identify what it is that you're looking for from your coffee program. So I won't come in and say that you need to buy, XYZ equipment. It's what is your goal for the program and how can we help you get there?
That I definitely sort of can vouch for that, because I know, in the run up to our cafe opening, you've been like on my case to say like, what can we do? And I'm like, I just want to get it open. I just want to see progress happen. But let's talk a little bit about the estate, because you mentioned that everything's grown on your estate. And does that mean that you don't work with farmers outside the estate and it's entirely, what's under your control?
So up until I came in to it, it was everything that was grown by us. As we started growing, we realized that we had a higher demand. We also wanted to be able to offer slightly more competitive coffees for larger corporates, larger customers. And we started tying up and having partnerships with the farmers in and around our neighborhood. The idea is that we buy their coffee and we still process it in-house. So all of the processing is still done by us. We have an extension which will now be called the neighborhood range or the collective range. We haven't decided yet, but it'll be the Nandan Collective is the idea, because it's collected from our neighbors, and that allows us to keep up with our growth. And also we wanted to provide that support within our valley, right? The reason we kept roasting at Nandanvan instead of bringing it down to Bombay, even though we've always grappled with it, is that we want to keep the more higher paying jobs within the coffee industry where the coffee grows, have that area come up as well. You don't want such a separation between the coffee is coming from point A and then it's going to point B and then it goes to the roaster and then it goes to the customer. That's your carbon footprint, but also there's a people cost associated, right? You want people to come up with you with your brand as it comes up as well.
That's amazing. Is the estate something that people can visit? I know you have a beautiful home there. Is that open to visitors?
It is open to visitors, and you can come in and you can rent there's a little bungalow. It's a homestay. It's very comfortable. It's very clean. If you're lucky, you'll see a bison or an elephant, and we've got 3 dogs who love the guests. So in the comment books, it's like everything was great, but specially loved April and Roxy. So it's lovely. It's a great place to stay. We were there for 3.5 months during lockdown. And again, I did not want to leave. But yeah.
Yeah, that sounds blissful. Where's the coffee industry headed? Like, what do you see as the potential market that you're looking at?
Oh my God, it's huge. It's huge. India is untapped as a market in and of itself. If you're looking at the major cities, we've only tapped into, your Bombay, Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore, but you've got tier 2 cities that are coming up that have the most incredible coffee programs, Jaipur being one of them. And you think of Jaipur, which is in the north, it's not even closer to the coffee growing regions, that has an amazing coffee culture.
You mentioned cafe. and you have your first sort of flagship cafe at the Geo World Drive in Bombay. How important is it for a coffee brand to have a physical presence? And, is that something that you see growing parallelly to your sort of coffee supplies around the country?
100%. I think it's so important because it's what allows consumers to come and experience your brand and interact with it. India being a market, we're so culturally taught not to waste anything, right? If it's on your plate, you have to finish it. And so when people are buying food online, especially something like coffee, there's such a barrier because the first thought is if I order it and I don't like it, I'm stuck with this entire bag of coffee. I don't want to waste it. I don't want to drink something I might not like. I don't know how to make it. There are all of these barriers within the coffee industry in India also because how will I train someone at home how to make this? This is too complicated. So retailing coffee beans itself, I think, is the smallest percentage right now of the industry. Obviously, it's growing. But when you have your own physical space, you can really give customers the experience of your product how you intended to. Today, we supply to so many restaurants, and every restaurant that serves our coffee, it tastes a little bit different depending on who's making it, what equipment they have. There's a whole experience, right? So when we have our own spaces, it helps.
I know for me, as someone who drinks coffee every day, convenience is a big thing. How do you kind of compete with the Nespressos of the world where it's literally a push of a button?
I don't know if this is going to be the right thing to say, but Nespresso is a different industry. And what they've done is amazing and it's brilliant. They've managed to make sure that their coffee is consistent and easy. And it's unbelievable, and all credit to Nespresso with what they've done. But the market is completely different. Although the product is the same and the end goal is I just want a cup of coffee, it's the same. But it's difficult to get that kind of consistency if you're using whole beans and trying to make it at home without having a fully automatic machine, which gives you that consistency cup to cup without you playing around with it. But there are ways to educate customers to make it easier. So even when it comes to brewing equipment at home, we always like to understand our customers' lifestyles, and then we help recommend brewing equipment or which type of coffee will be best for them.
You're absolutely right that there's so many variables in getting to that good cup of coffee. You talked about instant as well. Is that something that you see yourselves creating?
So without giving too much away, we're definitely looking at making more accessible coffees. Instant is not something that we're looking at the moment.
By instant, I mean the one where it's like in almost like a tea bag and you just pour it over.
So we're exploring a couple of different avenues to just make our coffee more accessible to people without having to go through my 20 questions.
You've been at this now for, 6 years? What's the entrepreneur life like?
Well, the number of times I call you saying, Gauri, help me. I love it. I would love being able to go to work at 9 a.m. and clock out at 5 p.m. But I do love creating something that I'm so passionate about with a product that I love and believe in so much. It's fun. Everyone says, oh, you can pick your own holidays. I haven't seen a holiday since I've started. But it's fun, and I realized that there really is help everywhere. Once I realized I could pick up the phone and call someone and ask for help and look for mentors and do these things, I think it became a lot easier. And having the right team, not just within our own team, but having the right vendors, the right customers, all of that really helps create the pillars of support.
What would you say, and this is for people who, like you, want to take that plunge into entrepreneurship, and yes, you may have had somewhat of a foundation set up that you were able to, but you've taken it into a whole different direction. So what would you say are your biggest challenges today?
We want to make sure that as we're growing, we continue to provide the support and more, right? So we want to make sure that we have a team in place that sees our vision and believes in the product and believes in this. And I didn't realize how much we would have to educate everyone on coffee itself, not just our customers, but everyone throughout our entire supply chain, making sure that everyone knows the goal that we're working towards, whether you're harvesting the coffee, roasting the coffee, whether you're an accounts team dealing with someone else's accounts team. Everyone is in a customer service position. And I think keeping the team as strong and aligned with the vision has been the biggest challenge, but also the most fun. And learning how to have a team was also a huge challenge, right? I was so used to it being me and my sister and mom and dad as 911s, but me and my sister, and then just me doing everything. That learning how to have a team and how to work within a team and having the patience to train everyone also is big. Like now I have to stop myself. Go, can I delegate this to someone? If it's yes, as opposed to starting the task and realizing that there was someone I could have delegated it to, but learning that entire process has been the most challenging, I would say.
We've all been there, so you're not alone on that one, and it gets easier. It gets easier to delegate. It doesn't get easier to run a business. But you're right. It's a one of those love-hate relationships. As long as there's more love than hate, then you're in a good place. But do you feel that there's room for, and we've seen this in our industry, in the F&B industry, of where the educational institutions also need to kind of recognize how things have changed and keep up with that when it comes to teaching. Is coffee something that's taught about in, like culinary school and hotel management schools and things?
Coffee is taught about in culinary schools the way it's executed in the real world, which is it's the lowest on the totem pole of priority. But as an industry, I think it's where people can see huge growth. And that's in F&B, right? You start as you could be washing dishes. And if you learn quick, that growth comes so much faster. And I think that's a huge benefit of the F&B industry, but coffee also. It's not taught. When we were first looking to hire, we had no idea of where to even start, where even some of our competitors were super helpful in saying, here are some resumes that came our way. But it's not something that's taught. So we were looking and calling bartending schools, saying, do you guys train in coffee? Is there anyone we can hire? And it's a very specialized industry and it's a niche, but the change we've seen in the last 5 years in the industry is huge. So the education needs to support it. But it is something where you can learn on the job. I learned on the job. Everyone I know in the industry has learned on the job. So like anything else, doing it in school and in a classroom and in a very controlled environment is one thing. But when you're actually behind the bar and you're a barista and you've got 100 orders coming at you, that's when you really know how good you are. Or even in the roasting room, when you've got orders backed up, that's when you really know how things.
I don't think we ever used to hire baristas as a position, and now we are. And I remember there are baristas who go for, AeroPress competitions, and I was like, what is going on here? Like, and they get really like into it, and it's like and it's amazing. So I mean, I can see the evolution happening like right before me, and it's happening at a really fast pace. And even latte art, that's one of my bucket list things, by the way. So I'm on a mission to like learn at some point when I have time. So I might come knocking on your door.
I can't do latte art.
Yeah, you just shatter on my image.
Gauri, that's... No. Can you cook me a meal?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, fair. Touche.
But you can tell me if it's presented right and cooked right. So we can hang out together and have our teams train each other.
And experiment. Yeah.
Just at pop-ups, there's always been a moment in time where I send someone for break and 5 orders come in. And I'm kind of chatting with the person. I'm like, so are you shopping here today? Let me start making your order and I'll pull the shot. And I'm looking over my shoulder and someone's will come in and I'll start steaming the milk going, I know how to do this. I can do it. And I always make one brilliant cappuccino, but there's only one.
We have come to that part of the show where I've obviously known you for a few years, but we're going to see how well I know you. So you have to tell us 2 truths and a lie. Okay. And I have to guess the lie.
I'm going to read it out. Ready? Because I want to keep as much of a poker face as possible. One of our dogs has been known to get checked for fleas by the monkeys at the estate. I drink more than 4 cups of coffee every day. We will be launching an extremely special limited batch of coffee soon that's been processed with the help of monkeys.
What's with the monkeys? There's a lot of monkeys in there. I'm pretty sure you drink more than 4 cups a day. It's an occupational hazard. So I'm gonna take that as the truth. I don't know. Like monkeys and dogs, do they get on? I don't know. I've heard of civet coffee, but I haven't heard of anything to do with monkeys.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do I get when you're wrong?
You'll get a bag of Nandan coffee.
Can I
get a croissant?
Can I get a bottle at you?
Yeah. I'm gonna go with the dog fleas not being picked by a monkey, because that just sounds a little crazy. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So no,
So what
it's
do I-
true that she gets her fleas
Oh my
picked.
god, it's
Yeah.
true. So
Yeah.
what? You're the last one then, or you drink?
I don't drink 4
What?
cups of coffee
Are
a
you
day.
serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless it's a tasting day and I have to, but even then I'm using a
Really?
spittoon. I have no more than 1 or 2.
Oh my god, I'm impressed. I do have multiple meals at my establishment, so I have to learn some restraint from you, clearly. But wow, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds fun though, about the new batch as well.
Yeah, so it's monkey parchment coffee. So monkeys, similar to civet coffee, they pick off the beans when it's ripest, right? Because it's its sweetest then. So they eat a little and they spit out the bean, and we harvest that, process it, roast it, and we have a limited batch of it, obviously, because we're scouring acres of land to find coffee beans on the ground.
So you mean that because of what they pick, that's the sweetest to
Instinctively, they go for the best and the ripest bean that's at its perfect level of ripeness that even a human eye can't always tell. So
very interesting. We're looking forward to that. Monkey coffee. You're going to create a new trend here in this country. So, well, listen, all the very best. And it's such a pleasure working with you and your team. And and I hope you reach new heights.
thank you. This was fun. My first one done.